Hi guys, Squall here, and welcome to another Microsoft Flight Simulator video. This is a preview build, so obviously bear in mind we may see some kind of weird and wonderful things because it is a preview build ahead of release on the 18th. I hope you enjoyed my first look video. This is a follow-up video. I thought we'd dive into a little bit more depth on something cool. Ignore the crazies in the background, by the way. They're just AI traffic doing their thing. We're in Sydney, by the way. We're in lovely sunny Sydney, and we're in an aircraft that I believe this is in the standard edition of Microsoft Flight Sim, so everybody should have access to it, and I thoroughly recommend it. It is a crazy fun aircraft, and currently I think the only one that's it can land on water. It's an Icon A5, and it is like a car that can land on water. And you'll see what I mean when we jump inside. It is literally like a car, this thing. The engine sounds like a car. The dashboard looks like a car. But it's a whole lot of fun. Oh man, it's a whole lot of fun. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take off we're just in Sydney in the suburbs. We're going to take off as if we owned one of these things and live in I don't know, which house do you fancy? That one maybe? We'll live over there. We're going to fly, I think, east to the Opera House. And then we're going to land next to Sydney Opera House. We'll kind of overfly it first and just have a quick look around. And then we'll land somewhere next to the Opera House. I'm going to show you how to start this thing up. Shutting it down is fairly easy. And when I'm flying, I'm going to talk through some of the things that you need to know. I had to flick through the Icon A5 pilot's manual to learn some stuff so that I can pass on that knowledge. But it's fairly easy. Honestly, it's like driving your car, this thing. It's great. So first of all, let's jump back inside. There we go. Now you see what I mean, right? Now you look at that. It's literally like a car. Even the speedo. The speedo and the altimeter are just... I mean, if that was an RPM gauge on the right, it would be there, right? So let's zoom in. So, quickly, we'll go through some of the stuff here. This is the airspeed in knots. Obviously, this is the flap speed here. The white arc, so above 75. You need to have your flaps up by then. Maximum speed is about 95 knots. It cruises at about 85, depending on the wind. Down here is the fuel, 20 gallons, has a range of about 420 nautical miles, I believe, about 5 hours endurance, I think it is. Oil temperature and pressures are here, and the water temperature is down there. RPM gauge, cruising at 85, generally you'll be about 4.5 to 5,000 RPM, something like that. This here is the attitude indicator, which will come alive when we turn this thing on. And then this is the altitude indicator, which obviously, you know, you can turn this knob here. It's not moving at the moment because it's not powered. But it's kind of hard to read your altitude from this dial. It's not so bad in the bigger numbers, but the smaller numbers are a little bit... You know, when you're coming into land, it's very hard to see just how far you are off the ground. But I'll show you something over here in a second that will mitigate that. And on his instrument lights, magnetos and start switch, master switches over here. Over here... You've essentially got the comm panel is there, transponder's there, your landing gear, flaps, trim, and then all your lights. Turn that off for a second. All your lights are down here. This is your bilge pump, which is inoperative in this version, as is the heating. And this is the water rudder, which we'll go through in a bit. Overhead, there's not much going on. The actual aircraft itself has a parachute. So, yeah, it actually literally has a parachute. A bit like a Cirrus SR-22, I guess. You pull this thing, parachute deploys, lands you on the wheels if you need it in an emergency. These buttons are inoperative, but fuel is not, so we'll put the fuel shut-off valves on. And we'll start this thing up and we'll get going. We'll show you. It's a lot of fun, this thing. So first thing we want to do is put the battery master on. This will boot up the Garmin system. You can see everything's come alive here. VFR. I don't know what the VFR code is actually in Australia. The UK is 7,000. I don't know what it is in Australia, so we'll just leave that as it is. Comms we're not going to use. So the landing gear itself has two modes. It has 3 position indicators, up, in transit, and down. We only use down if we're landing on hard runways and surfaces and things. Up position, you can land on water. When it's in transit, it takes about 7 seconds to move from one position to the other. So we just need to make sure that's up, and flaps are up. Everything's as it should be. We'll put the strobe light on because we're going to start the engine. display panel brightness, we'll put it on just in case it gets dark. It's actually, I've set the weather to sort of scattered clouds, so we should be good weather-wise. But we'll turn the magnet. Listen to this. This is literally like, you just won't believe this. Does that sound? Does that sound like a car? I love it. Honestly, I love this thing. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's so much fun, but it does sound like a car. Anyway, so over here, I'll just switch to that view there. Actually, why is that not? Looks like that position's moved slightly. Anyway, I have some camera presets. The camera system's working a lot better now in the preview. It was in the alpha, it was a bit weird, but it's working a lot better. So when you want to set the altimeter, obviously, you know, you'd get that from whatever, from the local ATC or whatever. But you can switch to this, and because we're literally sat on the sea, we can just use sea level like that. There you go. So that gives us a really accurate assessment. Now, obviously, this is your heading bug, or your heading is here. The actual aircraft has a few systems on board. I'm not talked about this yet. This is an important indicator. Has a few systems on board, but you've got the 3D vision turned on at the moment. Here's the map. So if I zoom the map out, you can see roughly where we are. We are down on, this is Australia, obviously down the east coast. There's Sydney International. And if we zoom in, you'll see I'm going to basically take off out of this body of water here. And then we're going to head over here to the east. Sydney Opera House is, let me think, there's the Sydney Bridge. It's about here. We'll find it. All the city high-rises over here, so it's not hard to find. But yeah, it's useful being in that view when you're landing, for example, because you can see an accurate altimeter as opposed to this thing. So that's one little tip for you. Let's talk about this here. The aircraft has static pitot tubes above and below the wing, and it detects the difference in pressure between the two, and it gives you an angle of attack indicator. And this is actually useful for a number of reasons. It's not just useful when flying, so that you can actually see what kind of angle of attack you're presenting with your wing, but it's essential when you land, because you need to get the angle of attack on the white line in the middle. So when you're landing, you want to be landing full flaps with the wing angle of attack level, and then just basically throttle back, let the power bleed off, let the airspeed bleed off, and it'll come down on its own. But we'll see that in action. Anyway, we've got all good water temperature and pressures. We've got enough fuel for the journey. So we'll stick our nav lights on. We'll put our landing lights on. This is the water rudder, as it's called. If you deploy this, you'll see the transit light comes on. Takes a few seconds. The plane in the water will allow you to, you know, it will allow you to adjust its direction. But when you deploy this thing, it deploys it even further, so it digs into the water more, gives you more rudder authority. But you're not to deploy this on land, because I think you'll damage it. Although I believe it's on a spring, so it will in theory be able to take a bashing, but not recommended. There's nothing else to do on the overhead, so we'll basically get into position. I'll just move myself up slightly, and we'll have a quick look at the map, because I want to make sure we taxi out correctly. So as I say, we're going to taxi, we're going to head north. Full power, basically. When it gets to about 45-50 knots, this thing will just start to take off on its own, you'll see. Takeoff flaps are 15 degrees. Landing is with 4 flaps. Trim is good. Landing lights are on. Everything looks good. So let's taxi over. Have a quick check around, make sure it's all clear. So you bring in a bit of power, and this thing will gradually just start to move. Obviously, when you're in the water, there's no actual brakes, so can't really do very much. Okay, I'm being an idiot. There's this thing, let me just pause it, see. There's a thing in Microsoft Flight Simulator called Live Pause, right? If you press the pause brake here on your keyboard, it allows you to use your aircraft, but it will pause everything in the sim. And what was happening was, it lets me do everything with the aircraft. However, it doesn't let me move because I'm paused. So now when I unpause it, suddenly I can move. So that's lesson learned right there. Something to be aware of. I live paused it when I got some lunch, and then I came back and forgot I had it paused. And there's no visual indicator on the screen. I think they need to put something on the screen saying live pause or something, because that just caught me out nicely. one to watch out for. Anyway, so as I was saying, if you bring up the RPMs, we've got the water rudder down, so as we move forward, you should be able to get a bit of rudder authority here. It's meant for taxi speeds only, though. You're supposed to retract it once you get above taxi speed, so... You know, this kind of speed, you can see we've got authority in the rudder. We can start to head north, like that. And then we can just give it some full throttle. And the airspeed should start building. It's bouncing out the water. Yeah, 30 knots, 35. I just ease back now. It should bring itself out the water like that. We'll set the trim. Now there's no landing gear to bring up, obviously, but the flaps are coming up now because we've hit 70 knots, and I'll just bring the water rudder up and the landing light can come off. Okay, gear is definitely up, you can see that. Water rudder's up, it's not in transit anymore. Now you've got to watch your airspeed and your RPM here, so you just pull back to make sure you don't overspeed on the climb. But you can see this thing climbs pretty quickly. Like if we just go to the 3D vision a second, look at that view. Oh my god! You know, I can easily just back off now to 5,000, and we'll probably go to about 1,000 feet, something like that. Give us a nice view of Sydney. Oh my god, this game. The sim, I don't even know what to call it. It's an astonishing piece of technology. What a time to be alive, eh? You know what? We've had all the bad stuff with COVID in 2020, but this is one of the gems in 2020. This is one of the things that can make us all happy again. Look at this. Okay, I want to turn to the east now, so we'll just start banking over. Notice that it does have a slip indicator on the attitude section there. I don't know if you can see it. If I just put some left and right rudder in, you can see the slip moving around, little triangle. I'll just keep the turn going. It's just a matter of paying attention, as usual, paying attention to your speed, paying attention to your RPM. But this thing, I've noticed, does have a tendency to, you can overspeed it quite easily. So you've just got to be careful. The engine feels more powerful than the aircraft is capable of, you see what I mean? In that the airframe warning is at 95 knots, but this thing can easily get 95 knots. Okay, there's the actual city high-rise over there. We'll just keep it turn going over here. There we go. And then we'll try and trim it out. Not the easiest thing to trim out. I've got a button control for the trim, but it's just more or less... It seems to take a lot of trim before... There you go. If you notice the trim light now, it's in the middle. And that's got me, if I just let go, that's got me trimmed for a very slight climb, so we'll just trim it down a little bit more. But it's kind of tricky to try and get it exactly where you want it to be. Anyway, welcome to Sydney. And what a sight this is. We just go for the external camera a second, and you can see the beauty. Even this aircraft is a lovely thing. Yeah, the wings actually fold. The wings fold back along the length of it, and you can put it in a trailer and store it. It's such a cool bit of technology. They're about $300,000 or something, these things new. But I would love one. They are so much fun. Let's keep our handle on my attitude and my altitude, because I've lost a bit of altitude there. So there we go. We're heading down here. I think there's the Opera House there, you see it? So we'll just overfly the Opera House and then work out where we want to land. We may see some ships in the harbour. We shall see. Let's go to more RPM as well. So there we go, we're at 5,000 RPM, wings level, and we're doing about 87 knots, something like that. So as in my first look video, I'm running on the high-end settings. This is what you'll see now. There is actually another setting up from this called Ultra, which, you know, I'll be honest with you, unless you've got two graphics cards. I mean, I've got a 2080 Ti, and I'm running 60 FPS right now on high-end. And that is good. That is, you know, I'm more than happy with what I'm seeing out my window. But if you want to run it on Ultra, either you're going to have to be happy with a much lower FPS, or you're going to need two of them, I think, to make it happen. Or maybe NVIDIA's 3000 series when it comes out. Is that a ship collision ahead? I think it might be. That doesn't look good at all, does it? Oh, that's brilliant. Right, there's the district there, so if I just rock my wing over, there is Sydney Opera House. So I would like to land here and maybe taxi into that bay. And we'll call it a day there, I think. Let's go and work out our approach. I think what I'll do is I'll fly over to this cruise ship over here, and then we'll do a 180, come back and land. This thing does... you do need to allow plenty of space to land it, because it does float quite a while. Particularly with the ground effect over the water, it does go on a bit, and it can catch you out if you're trying to sort of land close to something, close to an island. For example, you're better off running parallel to the island and landing that way and then turning in when you're finished. Let's have a quick look. Look at that. This is the drone camera, by the way. You can use it to sort of look around. There you go. That is beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. Anyway, enough with the sightseeing. Let's start our descent here. So I'm just going to back off on the throttle and let it just gradually ease back. Because it is a high wing, it flies quite a bit like the Cessna 172 that I fly. In that it will glide a lot. There's a lot of lift on these wings. And it is tremendously good at gliding. I definitely want to make sure that we miss those cruise ships completely. Although it looks like they're going to have to call in emergency services, because that doesn't look good. Those boats do move around. Obviously the AI, like I say, is a preview build, so let's cut it some slack here. I'm going to put the map onto 3D vision, and then we get our altitude indicator accurately. So we're 600 feet. We'll just pull the nose up a little bit. Probably want to be looking to touch down just past those trees, because it will glide towards the Opera House. So I'm just going to back off on the throttle now. Let's get it into the white arc, and then we can get the first stage of flaps in. Just keep the nose up. And there we go, flap speed. So flaps 15. And pitch the nose down a little bit. It's nice and level. Full flaps. Let's get the landing lights on. Just give it a little bit of throttle because I want to get past these trees. Otherwise I'll have to taxi a long way. So 200 above at the moment. So the key thing here is to get the airspeed down and then get those wings and the angle of attack indicator level. So we'll go for it now. So get the wings level as we get down to about 100 feet. Start to pull up. Looking at the height, 50, 30, wings level, 20 feet, 10 wings level, and then just let the airspeed come off. And it'll literally slowly fall out the sky on its own. There it goes. And that's it. That's how you land this thing. Now, we don't deploy the water rudder just yet. We're going to bleed some speed off. But yeah, you've got to give yourself a run here. Because there's nothing you can do at this point. There's no reverse. There's no brake. You just wait for the water to slow you down, and it just takes a little while. welcome to Sydney Opera House, eh? Currently closed due to COVID. Get the water rudder down. Do you know what? I have to say, look how well that is modelled. Look at that. Let's not forget this is a flight sim. This is like one object that I can fly over in the world. And look at it. It's quite obviously been handcrafted, doesn't it? It just looks amazing. There you go, we'll stop it here. So, basically closing down checks are fairly simple. Obviously the landing light comes off. Nav light will come off. Obviously your trim, you'd want to get back to neutral now, because it's currently in quite an up position. So we'll do that. In terms of shutting this thing off, there's a fuel cut-off up here, which we can do that. And it says you finish your journey, but I'll just click continue. This is just what Flight Sim does, is it, when you turn the engine off, it will log that flight in your personal log. So it keeps a track of every flight you make, which is really cool. Turn the magnetos off. Battery master to off. And that's it. We are done. Full water physics. And the camera over here. Let me get a better view. And there's the Opera House. I can even zoom out if you want. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I hope you enjoyed that flight. That was a little short flight in the Icon A5 around Sydney Bay. Give me a thumbs up if you did. If you want me to look at anything in particular, any particular places you'd like me to go, any particular aircraft you'd like me to fly. Oh, look, I didn't lift the flaps up. If there's anything in particular you want, just let me know in the comments. I will read through them, pick out the good ideas and things like that, and make a video on it. Well, that's it for this video. So take care, guys. Happy flying.